December open. And the first item of business is to approve minutes from the November 8th, 2018 meeting.
I reviewed those minutes, Mr. Chair, and I move for approval.
Have a motion?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Beatty, investment report, please.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
We had one bid this month, and it was better than the bids we had last month. And we took the year option at $291, which was about, I think, 6 basis points better, 5 basis points better than the year we got last time. And the reason we did that, you know, we've done some 6 months, but there was just a pretty wide difference between 6 months and a year. So we went ahead and took the year option on that one. And our base went up 8 basis points to 218, so that makes our effective rate 244 on our investments. And if you want to look kind of why we've chosen to do that, you can see we've got one that comes due in a couple of months at 237. So when we took that, that was a great rate, significantly above what we were getting. But as it's pulled up, so that's why we kind of pulled back to those shorter rates as the rates rise.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Beatty? I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve is presented.
A motion,
Second.
Mr. Gooch. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Mr.
Merry
Beatty.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Next item is the fund condition report. Ms. Lisa will take care of that.
Okay, I'll start with the development tax. In November, we received $218,250. That brings our total for the year to $2,577,750. So we are 81% collected of what we estimated, with several months left to go. On our cash balances at the end of November, our total is $272,737,000, with $201,690,000 being operating funds, $71,047,000 being borrowed funds. Okay, no questions there. I'll move on to the revenue and where we are stacking up. Some of the things, I really didn't make any changes to the notations at the bottom. I will say that trustee's office has collected the 2018, they're 11% collected. That's a little, slightly 20 basis points higher than what they were last year at this time. But it's so early in the game, depending on when you get those mortgage statements. It does skew the numbers sometimes. Sales tax countywide, we are 8% above where we were last year at this time. Hotel motel tax, we have a decrease of 2.95%. As actual, and then development taxes increase of 33% over prior year. If you look at the bottom percentage of collections to our budget compared to all the actual, we are ahead. So that means we should be estimating amending revenues at the end of the year up.
Motion to approve this report.
Have a motion?
Second.
Mr. Piercy, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Risk management, please, Melissa. Welcome.
How are you? Okay, let's start with Fund 264. For the month of November, Fund 264 ended in revenue with $6,904,000 compared to expenses of $5,484,000 for a difference of $1,420,000. Calendar period, year-to-date revenue versus expenses. Prior period on revenue was $60,379,000 compared to current of $68,498,000. Expenses in prior period were $61,642,000 compared to prior $62,708,000. Fiscal period comparison shows revenue in prior period at $21,475,000 compared to current of $24,074,000. With expenses in prior period at $27,421,000 compared to current of $29,682,000. If you look at the last page, we'll look at the calendar year difference in revenue, and you'll see that we are currently trending 8.1 million in difference in revenue from a calendar year perspective, and expenses at $1,066,000. When you look at the fiscal year difference in revenue overall, we're at $2,598,000, and expense difference in $2,261,000, with an average enrollment in medical of 5,980 employees calendar year to date. You don't have legal next or 266?
266.
266 came in November with year-to-date of $366,181. Prior period was $456,803. With legal expenses for the month of November being $13,960, and prior year came in at $24,680.
Motion to approve is presented.
We have a motion?
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then Melissa, you've got this
Yeah.
wellness campaign and some other business.
Yes, sir. If you look at the wellness campaign, for 2019, a recommendation was made to the Risk Management Committee to modify the current program wherein an employee who participates on the medical plan and their spouse, if they participate, would need it to complete a health risk assessment online as well as complete a biometric screening in order to receive a $300 premium reduction over the course of the calendar year. We want to drive additional focus on annual physicals and preventative measures. Our reporting from Cigna shows that we are doing a good job already, but there's opportunity to improve. We think that the data collected in that will be even more meaningful to our employees and their participating spouses. So the recommendation is that beginning January 1st, we modify the program. An employee who participates on the plan would have to acquire 3 points. If their spouse participates on the plan, they too would have to accumulate up to 3 points based on the following opportunities. An annual physical would count as 2 points. Completing an online health assessment would count for 1 point. Getting an annual OB/GYN exam for females would count for 1 point. Getting a flu shot would count for 1 point. A mammogram would count for 1 point. A colon cancer screening for 1 point. Cervical cancer screening for 1 point. Prostate screening for 1 point. And for next year, we are also going to include the biometric screening for 1 point. Some of the advantages, in addition to just the information that the employee will gain in further looking at preventative services, is that it reduces paperwork to the process. Currently, there is a form that has to be completed by the provider and sent in for biometric screenings. We will continue that at the recommendation during 2019 and remove it for 2020 unless it comes back up for discussion. But once the biometric screening is no longer a viable option to get a point, then it will be a completely paperless process where the claims data will automatically show the accumulators for employees inside of Cigna, which is nice because right now what happens is everybody waits till the end and they all flood the MedPoint clinics and local community providers. They get those forms filled out and then they call us in a panic because it's now 1 to 2 weeks before the deadline and their point is not showing up in the system. Well, when you have thousands of documents going into Cigna at one time, it takes a little bit of time for them to get that uploaded into their system to reflect that point value. So it will be more real-time information at the point that we go to a claims basis over our current process as well. So there is another advantage for that. We will do a soft look back for the 3 months in prior year. The campaign will be promoted as January 1st through September 30th, just as it is now. However, if they happen to get their flu shot at the beginning of November every year, they would still get credit for that because we'll do a look back period of 90 days so that we don't miss any opportunities for the accumulators to occur. So the recommendation was made and was accepted unanimously by the Risk Management Committee, and I brought it to you for consideration.
What exactly is a biometric?
So a biometric is a blood draw that gives you baseline lab results. You're looking at LDL, HDL.
It's the same thing if you went to get your physical and drawn.
Well, a physical actually does not always entail a blood draw. That's really up to the physician's discretion as to whether or not they make that a part of their routine packet. Most do, but there could be an opportunity for someone to go get a physical, and if their doctor does do the blood draw, then they could also go ahead and fill out the form once the results are in and send that in as well. It measures height, weight, determines BMI, things like that as well on the form.
And so if the physical counts as 2 points,
Mhm.
and then they did that, that's the 3 points.
Correct, right.
When you was listing those things, I didn't really see, I know that you're not recommended, I guess, you have to get a yearly physical until you're like, what, 30 or 40 or something?
Well, yearly physicals, I mean, even children are recommended to get yearly physicals because it's an early detection process.
So
There
that's
are
just-
other age indicators such as colonoscopies start at age 50. And there are, are age parameters for when a female should get a mammogram and start having the cervical annual physical, those type of things as well. But those are more age-based than just a generalized annual physical would be.
And didn't Cigna tell us that all preventive, all wellness care is covered at 100%?
It is. Under our health plan, all wellness preventative services are covered at 100%. So there's no cost to the employee for this.
And so what happens again if they don't get their 3 points
Then their premium, they don't receive the premium reduction.
of $300?
Correct.
Going back to the colonoscopy, you're talking about, because it's a lot more, you're getting ready to do that.
Mhm.
It's a lot more involved, more expensive to do that.
Mhm.
Could you put some point in there for those who have family history?
So realistically.
Because that's 40, you
Mhm.
know, if you have family history. And-
Right.
And colon cancer is the one thing that you can actually save so many people's lives if
Yeah.
they catch it.
The problem is that would be the claim validation, so we would not be able to say, that would be up to the physician. So even if the physician sends them at 30,
Mhm.
it's still gonna count as a point for the colon screening. So we would be relying on the physician to make that referral for the colonoscopy.
I just thought that everything you gotta go through to get that should carry more points than a flu shot.
What we find is predominantly, we have a deficiency in our male population for preventative services, and so this will incentivize some of that as well. We typically find higher compliance with our females, not just when we look at it from the
That's true, that's why I
perspective
was-
that we have more females than males, but
I was
when
trying
we
to
look
give
at
them
it from more
points.
data. Yeah, I know.
I want to incentivize the males, you know, because that is something, once you get it, you know, if they detect it and you catch it early, you can save their life, but if it gets too long.
Yeah. The reason that we did the annual physical is because it doesn't have that age parameter, but we're open to, these are basically the things that Cigna can accept in their system. So we do have those limitations, but the point values we can modify based on the wishes of the committee.
Are there any other immunizations that they could identify as a point, or is it just a flu shot?
It's just a flu shot at this point, yeah. Everything else from that point forward in their system is like self-reported. We talked about that, and we really don't want to get into a self-reported scenario because it's now August the 20th, and I need one more point, and I'm going to call up and tell Cigna that I ran 3 miles every day for the last 6 months, so I can get my point. We want the actual claims data that we can validate it occurred, and once we see, just like we've seen steady increase in participation, then we'll continue to modify every couple of years based on what our reporting is showing, what the needs of our population shows we need improvement in, because the improvement in health drives the claims dollars. There's a direct correlation between the premiums that the county pays and the employee pays, because it's all based on how much we pay out in claims annually.
And there was some conversation about trying to incorporate wellness for the younger population. I know we do some things for expectant mothers.
Yeah.
You explained that a little bit
Right.
in the meeting.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things that a lot of this is skewed towards the older population, and so we were looking at maybe trying to incorporate some additional points for younger folks.
Yeah, that's where the biometric came back in. The question had led out with, was there some type of mental health or postpartum that we could include for the younger population, because we have so many individuals that have babies on our health plan. And we do have a separate program that we educate them about. We will do a targeted mailing. We've done it several times since I've been here, to individuals, females 40 and below, that just says, you know, if you're thinking about becoming pregnant, or if you're currently pregnant, enroll in the Healthy Babies program. They have to enroll by the end of the second trimester, and at that point, there's a monetary incentive for them to participate. So they have access 24/7 to a nurse line that specializes in dealing with labor and delivery. They also have access to postpartum individuals that will follow up with them to determine if they are carrying any type of postpartum depression or anything like that. So we did cover that, and we were able to meet the needs with existing programs in place.
Yeah, so the need is being met. The problem was we couldn't capture it into
Correct.
this system
That's
because
right.
Cigna doesn't track it in this
That is
format.
right.
So
Mhm.
that was the reason that it
Yeah,
wasn't.
dental was another one that we
Yeah.
looked at. We can't track that because their system doesn't house that information
On the wellness,
on the wellness platform. Yes, that's right.
but they did take it for feedback. I mean,
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's true.
I make a motion to accept as presented.
Have a motion?
Second.
Johnson. I believe we beat you out by a moment there. Okay, I don't believe there's any cost associated with this. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to invite Mr. Jay Brown to the table, if that's okay. He's with Mercer. We recently took a broker of record bid for our health and welfare program. We had 4 responses to that. Willis, who is the current broker of record with a contract set to expire effective 3/1. We have Lockton and CBiz and Mercer that were 4 candidates. We interviewed all 4 of them, those individuals, and through that we excluded Lockton and CBiz based on the fact that they didn't have a strong local presence, they didn't have a strong background in dealing with governments, municipalities, and so we excluded them from further consideration. We brought to the Risk Management Committee Willis and Mercer, and after both presentations and discussion, the recommendation by the committee was to take Mercer as the broker of record effective 3/1/2019. And we do acknowledge the fact that they are not the lowest bid, and I'd like to talk to you briefly about how they are paid and through what commissions. So Cigna products for medical, dental, vision, stop-loss, pharmacy are excluded from any type of commissions being paid to our broker of record. The products in which they receive their commissions from would be our short-term disability, long-term disability, and our voluntary products. And our life insurance. And of those, the county pays the premium for the $35,000 life insurance, and we pay the premiums for the long-term disability. The remainder of the products from which they are paid are all employee-paid products at 100%. And so the other thing too is that when they make these proposals, it's based on expected volume. And so they do some projections as to what they expect participation is going to be and what the annual premium is going to look like and what their commission structure is with the various carriers, and they are able then to provide us with what they foresee their premium or their commissions looking like on an annual basis. So if you will actually go back and look at the next to the last page, so maybe one more. It's the third to the last page. You'll see that in the proposal for Willis, they had indicated a 3-year lock on their rate of $585,000 over 3 years. Voluntary products were additional revenue that were not calculated into that. And then if we continued on for year 4 or 5, that they would take a maximum of a 5% increase. When you look to the far right, this is Mercer's proposal. They are at $645,000 over 3 years. Voluntary products are additional revenue and not applicable to the 3-year rate guarantee, same as Willis, and they have put in a 3-year cap for year 4 and 5 if we wanted to extend contract on a 1-year annual basis for either of those 2 years. There has been some issues in dealing with Willis that we had not dealt with previously. And for those who may not be aware, Mr. Brown actually worked with the county for 6 years through Cowan Benefits. He left Cowan Benefits, went to Mercer, where he is a partner now. And during that time, we did not encounter the service level issues that we've had. He got good feedback from the committees. A couple of committee members spoke up and talked about the quality of work that we've had in the past versus what we've experienced over the last 2.5 years. And it was through those discussions that we felt like that it was worth the additional commissions to be paid so that we got the best service at the best price based on the bid proposal. So the recommendation was accepted unanimously for Mercer to be our broker of record.
Is that what the purchasing committee had approved?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
I was present for both presentations and the conversation, and the committee was very comfortable with the recommendation of going with Mercer.
I have one question. You don't anticipate any long-term adverse effect as far as the premiums that the county employees gonna be paying any?
No, generally what you'll find is when we go to bid in general, regardless of who the broker is, that rates will either stay the same or they'll go down because they want to be competitive. And most brokers have about the same commission structure with all the various carriers out there. And there's typically like a first-year load where that's where they get the majority of their commissions. And you can even see that demonstrated if you look towards the end of the spreadsheet. You can see like with Unum where there was a front-end load of commissions for Willis Towers Watson in year 1, and then beginning with the next year, commissions changed. And so we really don't expect anything different. The other thing too is that if there is any premiums, and to your point, let's say that we hire on a lot of new people and that draws the rate to go up over the 3 years, then there is a true-up process where they will provide additional services in exchange for the additional commission. That is all available to do even under the various laws. So as an example, we have that situation with Willis Towers Watson right now, and they are going to do a pharmacy audit for us for Cigna.
Did you get a motion?
We don't.
Okay.
Be happy to entertain.
Motion to approve. This came out of the purchasing also.
Yes.
Second.
And there are associated costs to this, so I assume we need to call roll. If you don't mind.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Peake?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the Sheriff's Department. Well, Mike?
Can I do all these 3 at once, since they're all 101?
Since I hear an objection, we'll be
All right.
good.
We finally got the money for the 2017 JAG grant. It's $29,910, and then to put that into communication equipment, buy some radios and little pieces, and some holders for the radios. The second is insurance recovery money of $21,187 to be put in new motor vehicles. And the last will be, well, that's the jail. Does it matter?
Yeah, it's still.
We cleaned up some salaries from the guards, the salary line item for guards, and we need to put 150 in overtime for detention officers.
And just so our representative in public safety, they're understaffed right now, so they're able to pull some of the
We're
monies
getting there.
that.
We're getting better every week.
Yeah, yeah. So, any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion, Ms. Allen, Commissioner Johnson for a second.
Make it easy.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion
Thank you.
passes.
I have one question. Who was in the Grinch suit on,
And the queue.
who,
And you.
at the Smyrna Parade? The sheriff was on a golf cart and Chief Lowry and some others. There was a crew in a SUV walking behind them and handing out candy and walking around. And we were pretty close to the front of the beginning of the parade. All of a sudden they stop and siren goes off. And of course, you think they're just playing the siren. A Grinch gets out in a black and white striped uniform, runs around, does like a Chinese fire drill. They chase him and get him and put him back in. The whole crowd applauds. It was fantastic. It was really fantastic. So it was completely unexpected. I don't know who planned that, but it was very entertaining.
I think the hilarious part of it was, I think it was the Stewart Creek Band was right at the beginning of the parade.
It was Smyrna. Stewart was at the end. So it was Smyrna
Grinch
parade.
started with it, so the Grinch jumped out. They weren't expecting it, and the majorettes screamed, and they took off, started running. So the reaction was too good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It really was.
Oh, a lot of
Good
fun.
job.
It was a lot of
Good
fun.
job.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is pause. Mr. Gregory.
Good evening. We're asking to move some money around within our budget and take some money from unassigned fund balance to take 3 of our part-time kennel attendant positions to full-time. We've consistently over the years had a lot of turnover in that position. In 16 and 17, we had 12 folks turnover in that position. 17 and 18, we had 18 people. And thus far, this fiscal year, we've had 11. So we're getting into some very dire situations with our full-time staff that we have currently. We're having to bring them in on mandatory overtime, and we're burning those folks out. So by hiring 3 folks and moving some money around, and coupled with the unassigned fund balance, that will allow us to know that we'll have at least 2 full-time folks there every single day to help us clean the get through that.
Is the reason for the turnover, you think, is because they're part-time?
And when speaking with Sonia, yes, we believe that the benefits will be a plus on trying to get some folks to come in and stay.
Will the hourly rate increase?
The hourly rate now is $11 an hour. Based on the range that Sonia's provided, it would go from $11.26 an hour to $12.08 an hour, and then the benefits on top of that.
Any other discussion?
I would move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Commissioner Gooch. And who was the second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Farley, Fire and Rescue.
Before I do my budget amendment, I just want to take a short opportunity to thank the commission again for all your support, for helping us to purchase the tankers. We was right in the middle of Smyrna today, right there close down the road exit, had a semi that caught on fire, run off in the woods. The call first come out as a 18-wheeler gasoline truck, and the cab was on fire. Of course, the unfortunate part is the driver perished in that fire. But we were able to shut I-24 down, set up water operations right there in the middle of the interstate, provide enough water to fight that fire safely. And if it had been a gasoline tanker, we were prepared for that. So I just want to thank you again for what you provided for us, that we can handle those types of situations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My budget moved, we sold one of the older fire trucks to Cannon County, and for $25,000, and I wanted to move that money, $5,000 of that into our training budget, evaluation and testing, $10,000 into our uniforms, which will help with the 15 new firefighters we just brought on, and $10,000 in $790, which is other equipment, which is used to purchase new equipment that goes on some of the new apparatus we buy.
You did get the check up, right?
Pardon?
You got the check
I
up,
make sure the check cleared first. Yes, sir. I'll take your directions.
Okay.
we want to make sure it was there before we moved it.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Johnson,
Second.
Commissioner Gooch. Have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries. Okay. General purpose, oh, wait a minute. Juvenile court grant with the Tennessee Department of Children's Services and related. Is Ms. Scott here? Someone for that?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll do it. This is we previously had the Teen Tracks grant that ran through Youth Services. The state was no longer going to do that grant, but what they came out, they did offer another grant that will be running through Judge Scott's budget, and it is through the Tennessee Department of Children's Services Custody Prevention Services Grant. It's a two-year award, $46,448 per year, beginning 12/15/18. And along with it is through a contract with a private agency to provide those services to the at-risk youth. The subcontract is with Solutions Education Center to provide the services. And utilizing valid, research-informed mental health screening and assessments to youth who come before the juvenile court. And so the amendment is to increase revenue of $46,448, with that money being appropriated to contracts with private agency. Behind that first document is the resolution that will be presented to commission if y'all approve it tonight, and then behind that is the grant contract. So it will be one of those that kind of just come in and go out. Somebody else is providing the service.
Page 27 starts the Solutions Education contract, if you want to look at that also.
Is there any matching funds for the county on this
No,
grant?
No.
it's flow through. So what we're asking for is approval of the budget amendment. Well, really, there's the resolution that Mark has it all together.
Acceptance of the grant,
Acceptance of the grant.
contract with Solutions Education and budget amendment.
Are there any questions? No, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve that.
Mr. Stevens, motion.
Second.
Yes, ma'am. We have a motion and a second, and let's call roll on this, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion carries. Okay. Now, we get down to Mr. Sandy, general purpose school fund budget amendment.
Good evening. Good evening. Mayor, it's good to see you. Good to see you. Superintendent. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
All right, we have two amendments to the general purpose school budget. One of them is the additional state flow through money for our special ed students, those students that receive one-to-one supervision from the educational assistants. We'll start with that special ed funds for high-cost students. This amendment uses $229,574 in additional state flow-through funds account 47143 for IDEA students in order to fund 7 additional educational assistants for high-need students. These funds must be budgeted as part of this year's special education expenditures. Motion to amend $229,574 in additional state flow-through funds for IDEA students in order to fund 7 additional educational assistants for high-need students as presented. And I think it's the back page. I think we got it out of order. It kind of breaks it down. Maybe mine was out of order. Okay. The second page there kind of gives you an idea. These EA assistants are used primarily what's called ancillary aids, and they come to us with in the IEP, the individual educational placement program, and we've seen an increase. It's increasing. Over the last 10 years, it's increasing, and just continues to increase.
Well, we've talked a little bit too, you and I have about that population is
Right.
either emotionally fragile, medically fragile.
Medically fragile.
And then also when they come over to you from the city school system, if they've already been given one of these
Right.
aids, we have to honor that IEP.
Right.
And so we have to then provide it as well.
You know, primarily when they come in and they've been served on an IEP and the placement comes over, it's already within that, you know, that official document.
Right.
And we have to follow up with it. We have no choice.
We're going to take both these together.
Unless I hear an objection, let's do the second
Okay.
also.
All right, the second one's for the state portfolio peer review funds. This is where our teachers were trained to be peer reviewers on the kindergarten portfolio assessment. And Rutherford County Schools will receive $12,992 in other state grants revenue in order to pay a stipend to the teachers who participated in the state's portfolio peer review. With motion to amend $12,992 in order and other state grants revenues in order to pay the stipend to these teachers who participated in the state portfolio peer review stipend as presented. We were very, it's very good for us. We get a couple of things from it. We get the experience from the peer reviewer that can assist our kindergarten teachers as they get ready to submit their portfolio of their students. So it gives us a little insight on what they're looking for and train our teachers also.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
A motion?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Commissioner Gooch?
No, that's Pearson.
I have a question. Do you know off the top of your head on educational assistance and special ed, what is that hourly rate?
I think they start out, I want to say $11 or $12.
Something,
Yeah,
Okay.
$11 or $12 an
Yeah.
hour.
Do they get more because it's a special ed than, say, a regular classroom?
No, it's the same.
Okay.
This came out of Health and Ed. It's unanimously, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion? There being none, go ahead and call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Okay, next on the agenda is the Health Department contract amendment and related budget amendment. And Lisa will be...
Can I do it?
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so in the state contract was monies for the tobacco settlement grant. They made a change to that allocation, and then they changed some of the categories. They moved money within from what we had, and so this amendment changes the amount that we have for that contract and puts it in our budget into alignment with what the contract has. So we are approving the change to the contract and also decreasing revenue of $5,666. Sorry. Those reductions in employee insurance, $5,210. Reduction of supplies and materials of $7,700. Other charges of $3,956. That is the tobacco money. And increasing travel by $11,200. Now, this is related to the fully state-funded portion of the grant, of our budget.
What is travel?
It would be, when I spoke to Dana, she said that the state apparently is going to provide additional training for their people to go to. So travel is training.
And training is travel.
And training is training.
And this again with the health department, pretty much everything we do with them is just, the state maps out
Yeah.
how they want us budgeted,
Yeah.
and that's what we do. So it's passed through.
It is passed through. The employees there are, they're on our payroll, and we bill the state every month for what the expenses are.
Motion to approve is presented.
Have a
Second.
motion. And who was that? Commissioner Gooch?
Second.
Second. Okay, if there been any other discussion? Not hearing any, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, next is contract with juvenile detention care services with Haywood County. Ms. Duke.
Good evening. So Haywood County, Tennessee has asked for an opportunity to contract with the Juvenile Detention Center here in Rutherford County for our standard rate of $175 a night. And that's agreeable to us. And this is just the same contract that y'all have seen for some time now.
It's just basically a housekeeping measure, correct?
Yes.
Just a renewal.
What county was it?
Haywood, which is in West Tennessee towards Memphis.
Have you had them before?
No, this is brand new.
So it's not a renewal?
No, it's a brand new county, but it's the same
Same-
standard
same
contract that we've
scenario.
got.
It was east of Shelby, Mississippi too.
Just applying it to Haywood County. You got some other counties involved also.
Oh, yes, we have, I think we're almost in the 40s now with the amount of, with the counties that we're contracting with.
Motion to approve these.
Mr. Johnson.
Second.
Mr. Stevens. Any other discussion? Okay, call roll, please.
Mr. Gooch?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Tennessee Department of Corrections grant application for the recovery court. And Trey, yes, sir.
Good evening. This request is for the ability to be able to apply to the Department of Corrections for a 3-year grant totaling $250,000 to help offset some startup costs for the county in our reentry program. If you recall last year, we were able to ask for a reentry coordinator to help kind of reduce, hopefully in the future, our population in the juvenile, not in the juvenile, but in the correctional work center as well as the adult detention center. So looking at more smarter approaches, a better way of utilizing our money to hopefully reduce the amount of funds that we are doing on a year-to-year basis. It's just a smarter accounting of how we're spending our money. So this is just kind of to give us an extra person or two to be able to offset and get that program up and running to see the value of it. I mean, we talk, so that's my request. We talk about all the time about the reduction of numbers, but when we look at it from another standpoint, it's the fiscal dollars in the future that we're saving, the lawsuits, the reductions and things like that. And I don't say that enough to you all, but that's really what's the driving force behind a lot of what we're doing.
The bottom line is, right here at the very beginning, it says, does not require a match.
Yes, sir. I will never come to you with a match. I should say that.
No, never say never.
Never say never, but that's just, I'm not that, I can't.
But this is a good one.
Yes, I'm just not that kind of person. So they're going to award up to 4, their main focus is 4 rural areas of Tennessee the department is looking at. 1 in each grand division, and then there's 1 floater. So we're hopeful to try to articulate it in a way that we can get that 4th grant.
Make sure you tell them we're rural.
That is where we are. But I think most people see us as a larger area.
Larger rural area.
Yes, sir. But we're going to try.
Okay, any other questions? We'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Johnson.
Second.
Mr. Gooch. Okay, we're ready to call the roll then, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now we're looking at a general fund budget transfer for human resources. And St. Lucia.
I'll do that one. Yes, this is just a request to move money from the evaluation and testing, $1,175 to go to other contracted services for their NeoGov. There was an increase in their renewal of $1,175, so within the budget.
What is NeoGov?
NeoGov is the platform that we all use when we are trying to get new employees.
Septic application.
Software. As Mark said, the application process.
Well, I'll move that we approve that request.
All right. Commissioner Stevens has a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Allen, are there any other questions? If not, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead and look at the,
Number, yeah, 15.
15, the budget calendar.
Yeah, y'all ready for next year? Getting ready for next year's budget. That's what we're talking about. And the layout of what you are used to seeing, and it's our plan of attack for adopting the 1920 budget, beginning in January 11th, where we will be distributing forms to our department heads with an end date of June 26th, which is Wednesday, to adopt the budget. Mark has worked with various, with the Board of Education and getting meetings moved to where we have our joint meeting with the Board of Education and budget and, yeah, I was looking, lost the name of it, Health and Education Committee, on their recommendations. So it's all laid out, pretty much similar to the 13-14 year, with a few tweaks.
That's exactly right. Occasionally, as we go through, sometimes we'll see that we may not need some of the days, and, we can, do away with those days that need be. Or, some of you look at that calendar to make sure, we don't have any errors in there, and I don't assume we do. Normally we don't, but sometimes we'll slip up and put another committee in there. So just, all of y'all check it too.
One of the difference between the 13-14 year and this one is, back in the day, we would adopt on the last day of the year, of the fiscal year. But in the last, what do you say, 4 or 5 years, we've kind of backed it up and have done it either Monday or Tuesday, so that if there's any problem, you still have another opportunity to come back. If everything was to crash and burn on June 26th, we still have 2 more days to come back and settle it before end of the fiscal year.
Which is definitely something we want to do. You hear about some of these counties that are still fighting and, not able to pay their buses and things like that up in the year.
Go to October.
Yeah.
I'll just mention, I know for the new ones, new commissioners on the committee, I know you voted for this in the past as a commission, but as a budget committee, the second page is actually the meetings that you will attend. Some of the items on the first page are just deadline dates that we have to meet, but the second page is what you get to sit for.
Correct. Yeah.
Is that what was emailed out?
Yes, I emailed that out
Okay.
early, or last week, or I guess early this week, so.
And when we do this, it does give all the department heads plenty of time to set these dates.
Plenty of time.
Plenty of time to make their plans to be here to come in front of you.
Okay. Any questions?
I won't be able to make the May 28th and the May 30th meetings.
Okay, the May 28th, that's the joint, that's the one after, and the
school board budget.
That's
Open
the,
it.
May 28th is our discussion of the budget committee's discussion of the meetings.
right.
Right.
Yeah, the 21st
The
is
joint is the 21st.
You'll
yeah.
get the gist of that the night before then.
And then the 30th is when we actually propose the publication.
So what did you say?
28th.
Commissioner said the
30th.
28th and 30th? Okay. But you will then be able to hear the school board's presentation?
Correct.
Yeah.
And the 21st.
All right, any other discussion? You're not being under, we need to vote to approve this? Okay. I'll entertain a motion then.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next on the agenda is a general fund transfer for the county mayor.
So,
Here,
yeah.
here's yours.
Okay. A originally, and the budget that was set up before I got here was $800 for travel. I, this past week, traveled to the NCSL conference in Washington, D.C., which I've been a member of ALEC. About 5 years ago, they actually created a separate division of ALEC for local government officials, city and county. And so what I'm asking for is to transfer the budget out of my $60,000 at 599 to pick up the balance for that travel this past week.
Okay, approved. Commissioner Johnson
Second.
and Commissioner Gooch.
If we didn't transfer that, would he have to pay it out of his own pocket?
I don't know. That would be a question for our attorney.
I think it is already out of his own pocket.
So it would just stay out of his pocket.
That's correct. Is there any other discussion,
No.
Commissioner Gooch? Okay.
Don't go there, home.
There being none, let's call roll.
Mr. Gooch? Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes. Motion carries. And let's see, we have a last one here,
The last
solid
one.
waste contract in lieu of performance bond.
Yes, this is an amendment that we get every single year, and it reduces the amount of our liability every year. Come on, quit saying that, because it'd be terrible if it went up. So the the amount that we had in the contract is $2,461,575.49. Delete that and to include $2,308,342.41.
And this is something that's reoccurring every year, so, Mr. Johnson, I know you remember seeing it.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Johnson, there, a second? Second. Gooch? Stevens, okay. You were nodding and he was saying so. Okay, let's call roll, please.
Mr. Gooch?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes, motion carries. Is there any other business?
Mr. Chairman, tomorrow night, members, if you can make it, we're officially lighting the Christmas tree at the courthouse at 6 o'clock, I believe. 6 o'clock, it'll run through 7. Santa Claus is coming in by fire truck. He and Mrs. Claus will have several schools singing, a dance troupe. Somebody that was a singer on one of the award shows is actually singing, so hopefully it won't be too cold.
But is that all that before the lighting or after the lighting?
It all started at 6, and I think we lighted at 7, is that correct? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay, about 6.
Be there at 6 so you get everything.
Okay.
But we want to know if the Grinch is going to be there.
I'll maybe call the sheriff and see.
It was pretty entertaining, I have to say.
Yeah, can run around
Although
the street.
it was the unexpected element, which is what made it so fun, so I may have blocked it for you
Sure.
now, I'm sorry.
That's okay, but, and then
Maybe his heart grew.
Santa will continue to be there. I think there'll be a schedule posted. Santa will be there for kids and grandkids for the next couple of weeks.
And adults.
And adults. And they'll be inside, so they can go in and sit on his lap. We've got 2 rocking chairs. You probably saw that coming in. They had been borrowing previously those rocking chairs from somewhere and couldn't get them this year, so we went to Cracker Barrel and purchased 2 rocking chairs, which had been down day before yesterday to get those. So, and that belong to us, and we'll keep them looking good from year to year. That should last us long after all of us are gone.
All right. Well, is there any other business? I think that's got it. Motion to adjourn.
Cool.
We are adjourned.